Waiting for it. Okay, so it's now live. So give me 5 seconds and I'll do a little intro and we'll get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Game Time Guru. Now, as you guys know, the purpose of my show is to create a panoramic view on sports. I want to help you guys see sports through a different lens and essentially help you guys become gurus of all sports. So that's why today we're touching base on one that you may not know of. It's called the Highland Games. I want to talk about it, but I brought a world champion on the show with me today. His name's Phil Sansotta. Philly and I worked together for a little while when we used to work for bodybuilding.com. That's where I got to know him, got to understand the game, or understand the sport, I should say, a little bit better. Phil, I greatly appreciate you joining me on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm so stoked, man. So we're talking about the Highland Games. Now, for anybody who's listening, if you go and search it, you might see a couple guys in kilts throwing some objects in the air. But I want you, Phil, to tell us a little bit about the Highland Games. What is this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different, there's a big debate about when the games got started, how did it get started. The romantic in me likes to think it was when the English took away all the Scottish weapons and they had to train for war, so they started picking up stones and things like that. But probably the real story was two brothers started drinking scotch. There's no TV back, 1,000 years ago, and they said, "Hey, I can throw that stone further than you. Well, I can throw that hammer further than you," and just picked up steam from there.
Dude, I love it, man. So
Yeah.
what exactly do you guys do? So you throw like all these objects that got started, and you go and you compete. What are some of the things you throw in the air? What are some of the, like, what are these things? They're like hammers, they're stones. I don't even know.
Yeah. So we have 9 events. There's a different implement for each event. So basically the track and field games, partly based off of the Highland Games, right? So your shot put, your hammer throw, those all came from the Scottish Games. You start off with a braemar, which is a 22-pound stone you throw like just standing. Then you have an open stone, which is like the shot put, so it's a 16-pound stone. And like every stone is different, right? So you can go to one game that's 22 pounds, and it looks like this like big old potato. One's like a flat. It can be different. You have a 42-pound weight for distance that you throw one-handed spinning. Then you have a 28-pounder you throw one-hand spinning. You got a 16 and 22-pound hammer, weight over bar, which is like a 42-pound kettlebell you throw over your head over a bar. You have the big caber, which everybody knows is the giant telephone pole, and then you have the sheaf, which is a pitchfork into a burlap sack full of twine. You throw that over a bar over your head.
Dude, that's so rad. And if you remember, you obviously have to remember this at bodybuilding.com, our old place of employment, they actually let us compete and or try some of the events.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I put that on. Like I brought all the equipment out. Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. And I didn't know how in the world, so when you say like you put the pitchfork in a little burlap sack and throw it, like people think that sounds stupid. It is one of the most difficult things I've ever done, especially considering I've never tried it before. There's a technique to it all, like to every one of those events.
Yeah, I pride myself on being an athlete. Like I've always been pretty good at everything I've ever done. I sucked at the Highland Games. I mean, like it was like the most humbling sport I've ever been. Because I mean, you're trying to be smooth and technical and fast, but you also have to push, and throw and be strong. And man, like everybody has fallen like at least once throwing the 42-pound ball and chain. You hold it one hand and you spin around. I mean, it's insane. So yeah, it makes a humbled man out of all of us.
No, that's awesome, man. And if you guys are listening to this, I highly encourage you to go YouTube it or something. What he's talking about, like they're spinning around, they're throwing the weight. Like if you want to see it, it's legit. It's actually really interesting. It's a lot harder than it looks. But once you like start watching it, it actually looks hard. It doesn't, because right now it sounds like it's easy, but when you watch it, you're like, oh, okay, maybe that is difficult. And then when you actually try it, you're like, dude, there's a lot of training that goes into this. And we'll get into your training here in just a second. But you mentioned that you were an athlete. You're really good at pretty much everything you ever did. And then this was a humbling experience. I want to know when you started and what even got you interested in competing in the Highland Games.
Yeah, so I've been competing for 7 years now. I'm going to my 8th year. I used to be a soccer player, and then I tore my ACL training. I was in a play professional, and I was 160 pounds. I was a small dude, and I ended up tear my ACL, going to the gym to rehab, and I just started like weightlifting, and I kind of fell in love with actual lifting weights, got a little bit bigger. And my wife, her family's all Scottish, so we would go to the games and we'd watch, and like I just the competitive nature in me came out, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna try that. In my first game, I got my butt whooped. So
Really?
after that, I was like, no more. Like I will never be this bad again. And so I just slowly kind of got better and better. But yeah, me and my father-in-law, who is 70, we both compete. He competes in like the senior masters, and I compete in the lightweights.
Man, okay. So this
Yeah,
is legit. Let's talk about that then. Okay, I didn't even know your father-in-law. That's great. So we're talking, okay, so senior masters, you're in lightweights. So before the show, we just briefly touched base on this. I want you to explain how the weight classes work in the Highland Games and like how those classes with the like the elite masters, what that even means so that we can have an
yeah.
understanding.
Yeah, so you have a lightweight. There's also the women's division, and they have the same kind of class structure. So you have a lightweight, a heavyweight. Lightweights are 200 pounds and under. Heavyweight is everything, man. We've got guys that are 450 pounds. Then you also have a masters division, and within each one of those divisions, there's different classes. So you have A's, B's, C's, elite. Then you also have a novice, which is for anybody who's ever like wanted to come out and compete and doesn't want to compete in a class. Novice is like your first time out. So I compete in the elite lightweights, and my father-in-law is like in the senior, like vintage masters. He's so always like the oldest guy competing. Yeah, so you basically you can find the right class that fits kind of who you are. So if you're 40 years and older, you're a master.
Okay. And when
Yeah.
you first got started, you said, you know, it was kind of a humbling experience. Could your father-in-law at that time, before you had put in all the work and all this stuff, when you first got started, could he hold his own against you?
He did okay. Yeah, he we both got started at the same time. I actually my first game was what kind of got him to like I'm gonna go out and do this. And
Okay, okay.
he's a big guy. He actually kind of got me into weightlifting and helped me kind of develop my routine. So yeah, we both I think we just over a bottle of scotch one night decided we're doing it. Like we're just gonna go out and do it.
I love it, man. Talking about weightlifting and the training that's involved. So if like this is for me, okay, but if I didn't know you and I heard about this, I would have just thought it was like you just mentioned that there's guys that are like 400 plus pounds. I would have
Yeah.
just thought that was kind of like that because it's in a sense it almost sounds like a glorified track and field event where you know you got some big dudes just tossing around a lot of weight, a lot of heavy objects, but there's a lot of training that's involved. There's weightlifting that's involved, and you, like you said, pride yourself in being an athlete. I've seen the training you put in, but I want you to explain what kind of workouts do you do to train for the Highland Games?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing you could possibly do to train for the Highland Games is to go out and throw, right? Like, there's no amount of gym time to prepare you for like the amount of dynamic movement you have to create to throw these weights and stay like without fouling out in the trig. That's probably a lot of jargon right there, but it's but when I do train in the gym, I do mostly Olympic lifting. I try to do a lot of the same movements Olympic level shot putters do. So a lot of hang snatch, front squats, a lot of box jumps like plyometrics, a lot of stretching. So you're trying to keep my upper body and lower body strong, but still flexible because you have to like literally. There's times where like I'm so twisted and like my hips are going this way, my head's all the way back there, and I'm just trying to create as much of a long lever as I could possibly get to throw. So stretching is important, and then just yeah, a lot of Olympic lifting.
In regards to Olympic lifting, what's the most you've ever power cleaned? Just a power clean, no snatch on top of it or anything like that.
Power clean was 355.
355 for a
Yeah.
guy who's under 200 pounds, correct? Or
Yes.
competes under 200 pounds. Dude,
Yeah.
it's impressive, man. I'm telling you guys,
Ah,
I'm not just saying this. I watched Phil lift. He puts in time in the gym. Like you take the platform. Like this is how it was. If we got to the gym on a Saturday morning and we saw your bag there with your you know your sweet Nike whatever the Romeros. I don't even know if that's what they are, but
yeah.
they're like your platform Olympic shoes. We're like, oh, we're not lifting on the platform today. Phil's gonna be here for 2 hours. You got your chalk, you got everything. It's serious business, dude. When you get to the gym,
Yeah.
or it's a lot of work.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
yeah. Oh man. So the competitions, we're here in Idaho, but I want to know like, do they have competitions here in Idaho or locally around the regions? How do the competitions work if you want to
Yeah.
compete?
Honestly, you could find like a Scottish Highland game going on every weekend somewhere in the United States. So
Okay.
you could literally, I mean, it's pretty crazy. We actually competed with a guy from Scotland, and he was just like, "You guys take this way too serious. Like, I can't believe how serious you guys take the Highland Games." Yeah, we in Idaho actually is a very big chapter that pretty much runs all of the nation. So Idaho is a huge sweet spot for the Highland Games. But yeah, you can find a game going on anywhere across the country.
Man. Okay, so how do you have to pay to go spectate? Because I don't know if you have to pay to actually compete. I'm assuming there might be something that you have to do to
Yeah.
compete, but like to spectate, like to watch as a fan, do you have to pay?
Yeah, typically there's so if you go to any Celtic festival, there's typically a Highland Games competing within that festival, so you have to just pay the gate fee to get in. A lot of the local games here, we just have the games, we don't have a whole festival attached, and it's free to enter. To compete, usually it's like 20, $30,
Okay.
and you get a free T-shirt and all that fun stuff, and free drinks, and usually people out there smoking cigars, handing around scotch, and you're throwing big stuff, so
Dude,
it's worth the money.
that's awesome, man. That's totally you though. That's like when you said that
Yeah.
cigar scotch, that's Phil Sansotta right there. Love it. So you made your way to a world championship. I want to know how you even qualified to compete in a world championship. And then we're going to actually get into that competition in itself. So, how did you even qualify to get to a world championship competition, which was overseas? It wasn't even here in the United States. So, I want to
Yeah.
start with the journey.
So the rules kind of they've been like continually evolving and changing. The first time I went over to Hungary for the World Championship, you had to have a certain number of points accumulated on a national database. So that's one of the reasons that got me really into it as well. Like my first game I competed, I saw where I ranked against guys from like back east, all over the country, and it kind of motivates you to like, okay, one more point through getting one more foot or whatever it may be. So they take the top 10 athletes based off this point system on, this database, and then they'll select those people to go overseas to compete. This last year, we had an actual qualifier at nationals. So the top four guys at nationals got the invite. So you
Man,
actually, we had guys that were like in the top five that took seventh, eighth, and they got bumped out.
man. And so, how do you even get to
Yeah.
nationals? Like, what is it the same system? Like, you have a
Same
point
system,
system?
yeah. Yeah, so the point system applies to nationals, and the nationals you got to compete, take the top four, and they get invited to worlds. So
Okay. You get over to the world championships. How many times have you actually competed in worlds?
I want to say four world championship competitions.
Four world
Yeah,
championship competitions,
yeah.
and you've won it once or twice, or how many times?
That was my first one. So I took second back in 2015. I was favored to win in 2016. Man, I was killing it, and I tore my ACL, my other ACL,
Uh,
and that put me out for the year. So coming back and winning was pretty incredible.
so when you get there to the event, you pretty much got the best of the best. What
Yeah.
is the event like there compared to like a local event in Idaho? Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more intense. It's going to be a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's the world's compared to like a local. Just
It's funny because like in Hungary, it's they like I said, the Europeans don't take it as serious as we do, and so we had it was the worst conditions I've ever thrown in, man. Like we were in this like park that was like really sandy and dirty and like little tufts of crabgrass. I mean, it wasn't very good conditions. They had all of like this European TV just filming Sports Network filming us, which is pretty awesome, but really no fans. Like here in Idaho, the World Championship will be held in Mountain Home in 2018 because the facilities and like the grounds are so pristine. Like they won the bid to host the Worlds here, so it's gonna be awesome. You gotta come out for that, man.
okay,
It's gonna be awesome.
I will. That's
All right,
freaking dope. All right,
yeah,
that's what I'm
yeah,
talking
but yeah, Worlds in Hungary. It's funny. It's definitely it's not what you would expect, but it's it's still a good time. Like everybody still has their game face on.
Yeah, I got you. And let's see. From what I saw when you were posting it on social media, it seems like your world championship was a pretty close event. Is that correct? Like
Oh,
a close game. Didn't it come
yeah.
down to the wire or something?
Yeah, so it was my worst game of the year, man. Like I don't know, like I just so come back from the ACL, like I did a pretty good job of training, get myself back up to the level that I was. And then mid-year, I don't know if you knew, my wife got hit by a car, so she ended up was in the hospital for like a long time. And we ended up I mean, I ended up living with my in-laws with her because we had to stay with them to take care of her, and I couldn't really train. So man, my throws went down. I managed to get the invite to Worlds, and just dude, like the third event, I fouled out my first two throws, and you get three throws per event. fouled out the first two, and if I didn't make my third throw and actually get a mark, I mean, my day would have been over right there. And I ended up pulling out of my butt and get like a pretty decent throw to get me to the third place. And I had 3 times, man, where it was just like the last throw. Like all my throws were fouls. Last throw got me in. And then the very, very last event, it was like pouring down rain. It was the biggest caber, because it was in on caber, the big telephone pole. Biggest caber I've ever seen, right? And I had to get 2 perfect 12 o'clock. So like when you throw the caber, you want to land perfectly in front of you, so you get a perfect time. Yeah. So you don't want to throw for distance. You want to throw for time. So it has to be like a perfect throw. And I got my 2 12s, won by 1 point, and got my first world championship. Man, it was wild, dude. It was wild. Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know the details. I just thought it was pretty close from what you had posted. So are you still planning on going, like competing so that you can get to Mountain Home Worlds again?
So I actually, being the world champion, I'm already automatically qualified.
Oh, okay.
I don't have to compete at all this year if I don't want to, but I want to.
Oh, so, that's rad. Okay, so you don't have, if you win a world championship or you're a world champion, you are automatically qualified then, essentially.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's actually pretty dope. Now, I want to touch base on your ACL. You mentioned like you came back from an ACL injury, which is why it's even more impressive that you made it there and you won, even though it was like one of your worst events that you had, or worst games, sorry, that you had. But your torn ACL, obviously, you said that it kind of derailed your soccer path when it happened a long time ago for that. It's crazy that you came back from it and you were able to put the work in, especially with all the conditions this last year. You just mentioned there was an accident with your wife and there was a car situation there on top of your ACL recovery, this and that. Your torn ACL, like any sport, it's going to be tough. But man, when I watch some of the videos of you guys throwing, especially the ones that when you're twirling around, there's a lot of torque and pressure that goes on the knees and the ankles and all sorts of stuff. So it kind of makes me wheezy when I see that you tore your ACL and you're still doing all that stuff with a lot of weight in your hands. Like, it's easy to like tweak your knee again. I mean, what was the toughest part about coming back from ACL injury? And like, what's the most rewarding thing about being able to fight through it and go?
Yeah, honestly, so it's very, very violent. The emotions that you're creating, like, it's a very violent movement. I think honestly, the toughest part was the mental aspect, right? Coming back, losing so much. And I mean, dude, I was like in practice, I was setting every world record, in practice, like ready to go in 2016. When I tore the ACL, it was just such a defeat that it was tough to come back mentally from that. The knee actually healed up pretty quick. Within 3 months of the surgery, I mean, I was almost back at 100%. I had to let the ACL fuse to the bone was the biggest drawback. But I mean, when we tested my knee out, they're like, your knee is ready to go. Like, it's just up to you to let it heal and not re-tear it. So coming back mentally and trusting my body, and I'm not the same thrower I was before I tore it, and I think I'm starting to get there finally. But trusting that my body isn't like is fixed, and that I can still like create those violent movements, and that my knee's not going to tear again. That was the hardest part. But the most rewarding, honestly, was coming back and winning the world championship. On the torn ACL, like coming back, fighting through all those setbacks, and just having that perseverance and that mental toughness. Like I had the conversations in my head, like after I fouled out 2 throws and my third throw, it's like, if you foul again, you're done. If you get a safety throw and you don't put it out there and actually like you're like buried in 15th place, you're done. So having that kind of mental toughness, like, what'd you fight for? Like, why were you training in your garage gym that's 5 degrees out, in the middle of winter? Like, what are you doing that for? You're doing it for a world championship. So fighting back through all that and winning, that was definitely the most rewarding for sure.
That's so dope, man. To finish up, Phil, I just want to know, what's your favorite event? Like, what's your strongest event? The one that you enjoy the most? Like, that's your strong event when you come up to that one in each game. Like, that this is where you're going to dominate. What's your favorite one?
Yeah. So probably the ones that don't require a lot of movement, I can just kind of stand there and throw stuff. I liked it a lot. I had the world record in the Bramer, which is a standing 22-pound stone.
Okay.
That one I love just because you're just pushing that thing out like with all your force. Not a lot of technique. It's just pure power, right? Same with weight over bar. I held the world record in weight over bar as well, and that's a 42-pound ball on the kettlebell. And you throw it over bar as high as you can. But definitely the caber. Caber, I'd say, is my absolute favorite, just because like I won the world championship on it. I've turned some of the biggest sticks like pros can't even turn. So like for me, the caber is just it's so iconic. You know, it's just a when you think of the Highland Games, you think of the caber. So if you're a good caber tosser, and dude, like usually you're sitting there for 9 hours competing, like start to finish, it's a 9 hour day.
Wow.
And when I won the world championship, all the Europeans like they gassed out, like they were like they couldn't hang for more than 5 hours. So they're not used to throwing for that long. And so when it came to caber for me, that's like when I got to my best when everybody else was dropping off. And so that's when I was like, all right, I got this.
I love it, man. And what's the biggest thing or the best thing that the Highland Games has taught you, or what's your favorite thing since you started competing that you've learned through competing in the Highland Games?
Honestly, there's a lot of like the camaraderie. I mean, you're throwing against these guys that are, you know, your competitors on the field, but truth be told, like you know, I hang out with a lot of them. Like some of the world champion from last year, he's Romanian, and we became really, really close friends. And you know, same with my number one competitor here in the United States. You know, we want to work together like on his business, and he trains me. Like he helps me. He's like one of the, he's a veteran in the sport. And so like it's just the camaraderie is awesome. You know, you get to work with a lot of guys that are just like minded. They know how hard it is to get to where they you know where you are. So I like that. And then honestly the mental toughness. Like when at bodybuilding.com, like when I was trying to move up through customer service and trying to work towards my career path, you know, it's just having that kind of like attitude, that mindset that like, you know, you're like you're champion, like you're alpha, like you're gonna go out and you're gonna achieve it and you're gonna work hard for it. And you have to have that for the Highland Games. So that kind of, you know, leaches over to my career a little bit.
Right. Right, absolutely. Yeah. You can take things. That's perfect that you said that, because I'm trying to teach people through this podcast that you can learn things in sports. It's not just a bunch of dumb jocks. You can actually take things through whatever sport you compete in, whatever sport you participate in, and you can like actually put that into your life, whether it be your career, your home life, whatever. And it actually has they go side by side. And so I'm glad that you actually just said that. Phil, I greatly appreciate you joining me, man. I love you. I hope everybody enjoyed this and has a little bit more of a, I guess, a respect and a better view on what the Highland Games are. And we're going to be expecting to see you win another one in 2018. Mountain Home, right?
Yep, I'll do my best.
All right, dude. I appreciate you, Philly.
I appreciate it, man.
Not a problem. And for all you guys out there, we'll talk to you next week. All right, Phil. I appreciate you, man. That was perfect. That's exactly what I wanted out of it, and I think it's going to be great, dude. I'm going to push it out on Friday. I usually launch all my episodes on Friday, so I'll have my I'll do like a little promo video for it on Wednesday or something, and say like, hey, make sure to listen on Friday, and then push it out on Friday morning.
That's cool, dude. That's so awesome. You're like killing it, dude. I'm loving it, man.
I appreciate you, man. I'm having fun with it, dude. I'm having fun with it, and it's gaining a little bit more and more viewership over the last year. So like I'm averaging about 800 downloads a month now, which is a lot better than it was. So yeah, it means people are starting to listen and starting to share it around. But the cool thing is I've got people in Brazil obviously listening to it. I've got people in all over Europe, dude, because I interviewed this guy in Denmark. He was a hockey player, plays professional over in Denmark, and he was in the NHL for a little while. But anyways, he shared it over there with his buddies. So I got people in Sweden, Denmark, like all over Germany. Like, dude, it's crazy.
Dude, that's so awesome.
So it's cool to like get a little bit of a branch out there. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I'll push out on my social media too. I'll shout it out. You know,
dude, I would appreciate it if you could, man, if you share it
for sure.
But yeah, Philly, I appreciate you, man. And if you ever get any time, dude, I want to come see you sometime. So I don't know when it's going to be because you're hella busy with everything you're doing. But I love you, man, and I miss you. So,
bro, I feel the same way, man. I miss you too.
Keep the hair long.
Keep it
good, dude. All right.
I wore my Thor shirt today too.
Dude, I love it.
Got the Thor shirt on.
I love it, man.
Well, cool, dude. Yeah. I'll let you know if you ever want to do like a live, you know, video or podcast of Highland Games or practice or anything like that. And you want to like do some filming,
dude. Keep me posted, seriously. When you're training and stuff, if you would be down for that, that'd be legit, actually.
Yeah, for sure, man. That'd be awesome.
Okay. Solid, Philly. You have a good weekend, man. Happy Super Bowl Sunday, all right?
You too, yeah. Say hi to Tate for me, all right?
I will, for sure.
All right, brother.
Later, man.